What's the perfect diet? Is it keto? Is it carnivore? Is it low carb? Is it real food? The truth is, the perfect diet on paper might not be the perfect diet for you. For over a decade, I was a huge proponent of the real food movement. I was all in. I made homemade animal crackers, homemade goldfish, homemade wheat thins. I made my own yogurt, my own mayonnaise. I did all the things. But I've learned that real food isn't always better. If you're new here, hi, I'm Megan. I've lost 125 pounds with the help of compounded tirzepatide and a whole lot of hard work. I went from 243 pounds in August of 2023, and I've been maintaining a healthy weight for the past 15 months and sitting at right around 118 pounds for the past 10 months. Before I get started, I want to give a disclaimer that I am not a doctor, I am not a dietitian, I'm not a personal trainer, I have no expertise. I am an expert on only one thing, and that is this girl right here, myself. I'm just gonna share what has worked for me so that hopefully you have some ideas about how you can figure out what works for you. When I started using a GLP-1, I decided to completely change my lifestyle and go all in on nourishing myself and moving my body in ways that I hadn't before. And now maybe you're thinking I'm going backwards by saying that maybe real food isn't the healthiest option. I know when you think of people changing their lifestyle and becoming more healthy, you might think they're making the move toward real foods. And while I did that in a lot of ways, I also had to let go of some rules and rigidity that I had when it comes to real food and made choices that were better for me personally, even though they maybe went away from what the movement would say is healthy for me. Prior to having kids, I had a pretty comfortable weight around like 150 or 160 for most of my adult life. I am 5'4", and the top end of a healthy weight for my height is around 145 pounds. So I was just a few pounds overweight, just comfortably overweight. It never really affected me at all. Before I had kids, I did not know how to cook. My grandmother was actually a chef, and she did teach me to cook some things. I knew how to cook some Dominican specialties that are from where my family's from in the Dominican Republic. But other than that, I could cook like basic spaghetti or tacos, but I really didn't have a lot of experience in the kitchen. We laugh about it now, but my husband and I would go and buy this frozen pasta with like chicken, and it had like a few vegetables in it, and I would call it cooking from scratch when I emptied that into the pan and then I added an extra bag of vegetables to it. And when I added that extra bag of vegetables, it was making it my own. So that was cooking from scratch for me. I could make pancakes with a box mix. I could make French fries out of a bag, things like that. But that was really the extent of my cooking. Once I had a baby, and I realized that I was gonna be feeding my baby food, I knew that I didn't want her to be eating those kinds of things that we had been eating. I didn't want her eating food out of a bag that had a million ingredients. I wanted to know everything that was going into her body. She was only like this big, so I felt like the food that she was eating needed to be clean and pure and healthy for her, and I wanted her to have the very best chance to grow up and grow strong and healthy. That's when I discovered the real food movement. So I read several books by Michael Pollan, who's an amazing author and has really great things to say about real food. And I watched a lot of documentaries. I started following a blog that back in those days, it was brand new. It's called The 100 Days of Real Food with Lisa Leake. And I was just so inspired by the idea of real food. So I jumped all in onto the real food movement, and I'm so glad that I did. I have no regrets about that. When I got pregnant, I gained 50 pounds with my first baby. I was able to lose that 50 pounds pretty easily afterward, but then because we had kind of changed our whole lifestyle and started eating real food, I was able to lose an extra 30 pounds. So I was actually the thinnest I had ever been in my adult life after I had my first baby, just simply from switching to real food. So what does real food mean? Well, to me, it meant eating things in their most natural state whenever possible. So anything that was in a package, I made sure that it had 5 ingredients or less. We stuck to full fat dairy because I didn't want any extra processing that comes when you're taking the fat out of dairy. We even did raw milk for a while. I made my own yogurt in my Instant Pot. I used whole wheat in everything. I never used real sugar. I went probably about 5 years without ever buying or eating real sugar. And none of these things in and of themselves are bad or were bad for me. If you can eat that way, it is an amazing way to eat. Just for me, it is hard to eat like that in the real world. So for my daughter, I prepared every single thing that she ate for the first 3 years of her life. I made her animal crackers. I made fruit leather for her. I had a dehydrator. I made popsicles. I made everything at home. It's no surprise that when my daughter was about 6 months old and started eating, I had to quit my job because it is really hard to fully invest yourself into cooking from scratch and making every single thing that you're eating and have some sort of job on top of that. So I was a full-time stay-at-home mom. So it gave me that opportunity to be able to do that for my daughter. My husband and I did occasionally go to restaurants. But I always brought my daughter's food. She did not eat food from a restaurant till she was probably close to 4 years old. Looking back, I think maybe that was a little obsessive, but I was doing the best I could with the knowledge that I had at the time, so I don't really regret that. Once I had more kids, of course, I wasn't able to keep up with making every single thing from scratch. Making my own tortillas and then making my own tortilla chips from those tortillas, it just got to be too much with 3 little kids underfoot. So I started buying some things and loosening up my rules just a little bit. We do try to stick to organic things when possible. We grow a lot of vegetables and things in our own garden. I have always tried to make snacks and desserts with real food sweetener options like dates or maple syrup or honey. Again, I was just trying to get as close to nature as possible in the food that we were eating. Years down the line, I continued to cook for my family and make healthy food every day. I have cooked 3 meals a day for my family of 5 for years and years. And I take a lot of pride in that and have made them healthy food. And my kids are great eaters. They're not picky. Of course, they have preferences. They like certain things over other things, but we all do. For the most part, though, we eat really healthy at home. My problem was that when life got busy and overwhelming, I turned to food for comfort. I was definitely a stress eater and a comfort eater, and I would eat fast food. At my lowest point and highest weight, I was eating out 5 to 7 times a week, often multiple times a day. Kids were often eating out too, but a lot of the times it was just me. So it was either me and my husband or me and my kids or just me, and the common denominator was always me. So I was eating out more than anybody and gaining the weight to prove it. I gained about 75 pounds in a year and then continued to gain and gain until I reached my highest of 243 pounds. When I started on a GLP-1 2 years ago, I knew that I had to make a complete lifestyle change. I had to give up fast food completely. I had to almost give up eating at restaurants and cut it down to just once a week on date night for my husband. And we oftentimes now find other things to do besides just eating out. So we don't always eat out on that once a week date night, but it's an option if we need it. But I also had to learn to make some other sacrifices in my philosophy of real food. And they were decisions that I made from an educated standpoint, from knowing my body and learning about what I needed to feel my best. And so I thought I would tell you just about some of those swaps that I made today that maybe don't go along with the real food movement, but were right for me. So while I was in my 20s and switching to real food made a huge difference, and I was able to lose 80 pounds effortlessly. I did not exercise. I didn't change anything else. I was just able to live my life and the pounds melted off. losing weight when you're in your mid-20s is a lot easier than losing weight when you're in your late 30s. In my late 30s, I have hormones working against me. There's a lot going on with my body. I also had 3 kids and a husband and a more stressful life than I had when I just had a baby. So I knew that real food alone wasn't going to be the answer for me. Having a GLP-1 helped make the change in my brain so that I could get rid of the fast food and cut myself off from fast food was essential. But I knew that I had to make some changes in what I was eating at home as well. One of the biggest changes that I made was I started embracing artificial sweeteners. There are tons of scientific studies that show that artificial sweeteners are perfectly safe. If you wanted to, I'm sure you could find some studies that show that maybe they aren't right for you. And I think that was key, was that I had to make a decision for myself. I knew that I cannot give up sweet things. It would be very hard to do that. I maybe could do that for a very short time, but that is not the lifestyle that I'm going to be able to sustain for the long term. So I knew that I needed to have a way to enjoy the sweet things in life that I wanted to enjoy, but not affect my body in a negative way. I wore a continuous glucose monitor for quite some time in the early part of my journey on a GLP-1, and I realized that sugar affects me a lot. I know you'll hear a lot of people say things like bread or just carbs affect their glucose. For me, I did not really find that was the case. I could eat bread just fine. I could eat rice and pasta. For me, the real trigger for my glucose spiking in crazy ways was sugar. I could eat a whole bowl of like chicken fried rice and my blood sugar would be okay, but I would eat 1 chocolate chip cookie and my blood sugar would go through the roof and it would stay elevated for over 24 hours. So for me, I decided that switching to artificial sweeteners was going to be a tool that I was going to use to help balance out my body and be able to have a trade-off, that I could enjoy the sweet treats that I wanted to enjoy and know that my body was handling it and processing it in a way that was going to help me meet my goals. So I switched to using things like sugar-free syrup. So if I wanted to enjoy pancakes or waffles with my family on Saturday morning, which we often do, I knew I didn't want to have just dry pancakes. That's sad to me. But I didn't want to use the pure maple syrup that I've always used for years because it is just so bad for my blood sugar. So I switched to sugar-free syrup. It tastes delicious. It tastes just like syrup. I'm not missing anything, and I maybe use a tablespoon of it every week or every other week. So I'm not using a ton of it, but I love having it as an option when I want that sweet, sticky flavor on my pancakes. I also started drinking tea, having just a nice cup of tea, and I make it kind of a protein tea by adding in some collagen. I add a splash of Fairlife milk into it, and then I use a little bit of monk sugar in it. And while before I would have used real sugar, and with real sugar, you actually need quite a bit of it to sweeten your coffee or your tea. The monk sugar just gives me the little bit of sweetness that I need without affecting my body in a negative way. Now, I've said it before, but some people can't handle the sugar alcohols and monk sugar. So make sure before you go and buy this and try it that you think about yourself. If you can't handle sugar-free candy, if it has a laxative effect on you, then maybe using an artificial sweetener with sugar alcohols isn't for you. But luckily we have so many different options these days. Find one that works for you if that's something that you want to try. I also needed to find a way to handle my sweet tooth. I have a little bit of a sweet tooth every afternoon. It comes around 3 o'clock and I just need something. I used to buy the dark chocolate peanut butter cups from Trader Joe's in the big box that comes like this. I don't know how many are in there, but I would go to the checkout and I would buy the little bag of them with I think it's 5 or 7 of them in there. And that would be my immediate snack. I would eat that one on the way home. And then I would have that big container that I would eat in the next week. And I love those peanut butter cups. And I probably would eat 3 or 4, maybe 5 a day. And that wasn't all of the sweet stuff that I was eating. That was on top of ice cream or cake or cookies or other things. Even though I was on a GLP-1, I needed a way to have something sweet that was going to work with my body and be okay for my body to have. I found these skinny dipped keto peanut butter cups at Costco, and they are delicious. To me, they taste even better than the Trader Joe's chocolate peanut butter cups, but honestly, I haven't had one of the Trader Joe's peanut butter cups in years now. But these skinny dipped peanut butter cups, I've eaten one almost every day for the last 2 years, and it's just a delicious treat that I can have. It has 2 grams of sugar, and it is just what I need to satisfy my sweet tooth. If I am going to bake, I will often bake with half sugar, half monk sugar now. And that's a good way for me to just cut down on some of the sugar in our baked goods. I don't often eat many other baked goods because I'm so satisfied with my chocolate peanut butter cup. So I don't need anything else. If I'm eating anything else, it's just such a small amount that I don't really have to worry about it too much. But if I know I'm gonna eat something, I will often substitute part of it with monk sugar. Another swap that I made that moved away from some of my real food rules was that I started opting for lower fat or fat-free dairy. I have been so used to eating full fat dairy for so many years. It was a huge change, but now that I've been doing it for a little while, I can hardly notice the difference. So instead of having the full fat Fairlife milk, I will often do the 2%. I do like the full fat better, so I will often rotate them. 1 week I'll order the full fat and 1 week I'll order the 2%, and just kind of based on how I'm feeling. I do the same thing with my Greek yogurt. I love Fage Greek yogurt. The 5% milk fat, the full fat one, tastes like ice cream to me. It is so good. It's so thick and delicious. The 0% milk fat one is still good, but it's definitely not as creamy and thick and rich. So basically what I do is I'll just rotate. I will get full fat, then I'll get the 2%, and then I'll get the 0%. And I can make the choice that fits with my current goals. When I was heavy into my weight loss phase, when I was really focusing on meeting my goals, I definitely more often chose the 0% fat version because you're getting the taste and the volume of food for a lot less calories. Now that I'm on maintenance, I have the luxury that if I want more of the delicious taste and I have calories to spare, I can go with the full fat version, and it's fine because in this body, I have a little bit more room in what I'm eating so that I can eat that full fat version. Another change that I made is that I started drinking protein shakes. I was so adamantly against anything artificial. I've never eaten a protein bar. I had never really eaten even a granola bar before this point. I used to make my own homemade granola with honey, and I made my own homemade granola bar. But my granola was packed with so much butter and honey and paired with the oats and chocolate chips and dried fruit. It was a calorie bomb. I was so adamantly against prepackaged snacks and artificial things. Once I started on this journey and I realized how important getting in my protein was, especially at the very beginning when it is a little bit harder to eat, when you're just not very hungry and things don't sound good and you're really trying to maximize what you're eating to get the maximum amount of nutrients in, eating as little as possible, not because that's the goal, but because I just couldn't eat that much. So I knew that whatever I was eating, I needed to make sure it was counting. So I found a protein shake that I really like, and it is on the cleaner side, and I feel good about all the ingredients in it. I do the health code chocolate macadamia nut protein powder. I mix it with frozen bananas and water, and it is a delicious milkshake for me. But that is just something I never ever would have done before. But for me, getting in that 30 grams of protein to start my day or to fuel my muscles after a workout is completely worth that trade-off. I also drink Coke Zero probably every other day or so, and I feel zero regret about it. I drink so much water. I never drank water before, but I do now. I drink probably 90 ounces of water every day. And sometimes after drinking so much water, you just get tired of it and you want something else. I'm not a coffee drinker, so I do like getting a little bit of caffeine in other ways sometimes too. So I'm a big fan of tea and I do drink tea. Having a little Coke Zero every day makes me happy, and I am okay that it has artificial sweetener to give me that little bit of boost in my life that I need. I do drink the mini cans, which they look tiny. They're like 7.5 ounces. And I often don't even finish that little mini can. And again, it's not an everyday thing. I never have more than one in a day, but it's just a little treat that I'm happy to have the option to have. I know I've talked a lot about sugar on this video, but I actually was more of a carb addict than I was a sugar addict. I loved any kind of bread, any kind of carb, any kind of like muffin, croissant, tortilla, bread rolls, anything like that was totally what I was into. So I made a huge change when I started a GLP-1, which was really cutting out these bready carbs. And it wasn't really intentional. It was a side effect of the medication for me. Whereas before, any kind of bread looked so delicious to me. The medication made it so that I looked at a piece of bread and it kind of looked gross to me. I haven't heard anybody else with this random side effect. So if you've had something like this, let me know. I know I've heard from other people that they have had different like taste bud changes in things, which I also have had. I used to hate blueberries. My entire life I've hated blueberries, and now I love eating fresh blueberries. They're delicious. I put them in my yogurt and I enjoy them so much, and that was just a change from taking the GLP-1 medication. And the bread side effect was a positive one because my body didn't need all of those carbs. Now, carbs are not the enemy, they're not evil. If you want to incorporate carbs in your diet, that is great. I definitely do. The way I think about carbs is how I explain it to my children. Carbs are energy. We all need energy. I'm an active person now. I'm walking on average like 12 to 18,000 steps a day. I am working out hard for an hour to 2 hours every day. I play pickleball. I need energy. We just have to be conscious about how we're getting that energy. I prefer to get my energy from whole food carbs like potatoes and rice, sweet potatoes. These processed carbs or carbs in the form of refined white flour, they do provide energy, but it's quick bursts of energy and it's not long lasting. It's not the kind of energy that is going to sustain me throughout the day. So making a switch to whole wheat options is a great step in the right direction. And I definitely do that now. If I'm going to choose a piece of bread for a sandwich, I tend to purchase Dave's Killer bread for my family. It's really good. It has a lot of fiber. It's whole grain. You can eat a sandwich with a good amount of protein on it, some vegetables, and that bread, and it makes an amazing meal. When you're on a weight loss journey, you do have to think about how all of the different foods that you're eating are playing into the big picture. Even though I don't count calories, I'm definitely aware of the food that I'm putting into my body and how that kind of rounds out throughout the day and throughout the week. So if I'm looking at eating a sandwich and I don't want to make that sandwich a huge portion of the calories that I'm eating in the day, I might choose a lower calorie option. And there's lots of great options for that, where you can choose a lower calorie bread, a lower carb bread. I tend to like Sola bread. It is really delicious to me. It tastes good, and enjoy it, and make sure that I'm meeting all of my nutrition needs for the day. It's the same thing with tortillas. I love making homemade tortillas. I will often make them for my family. If I want to eat a homemade tortilla, I will eat a homemade tortilla. But if I feel like I've gone over the carb energy intake that I need for the day, then I love having a good option for a tortilla that I can eat that tastes good to me and is a lower carb version. I love the Mission Zero carb tortillas. They're really small and they make just a really good vehicle to get in a lot of protein and veggies in a taco or a quesadilla, and I like having that option. Some other lower carb options that I choose quite frequently are hamburger buns or hot dog buns or pita wraps. I'll use the Joseph's pita wraps. For hamburger and hot dog buns, I tend to like the Sola brand. All of those low carb options are ones I don't eat all the time, but I like having the option available. I usually just keep them in my freezer. That way, if I'm feeling like I want it, I can pull one out, heat it up in the microwave, and I'm good to go. Some other foods that I used to love making from scratch and still do, but also still choose some higher protein options, are things like waffles and pancakes. I have a waffle pancake recipe that I love making, and I still make it for my family. But when I want to eat a waffle or a pancake, I am going to choose a higher protein version. So I'll either make it myself using the Kodiak cake mix, or I will make it myself using my from scratch recipe mix and add in some protein powder and or collagen. I even kind of like the frozen pancakes and waffles from Premier Protein. They are pretty tasty. The ingredients are not very clean, but sometimes it's nice to have just a higher protein option in my freezer so that I can have it if I'm having a day where I feel like, hey, I just want a waffle. I also switched to using protein pasta. It tastes delicious. It is so good. good. Sometimes my kids will ask me, hey, can we have non-protein pasta? And I will totally make them non-protein pasta because they're kids and they need more energy than I do from their carbs. So I will make it for them. But if I'm going to eat pasta, it's going to be a higher protein version. I used to make all of my sauces and dressings from scratch. When you're making homemade salad dressings, you're using olive oil, which is a good oil, or avocado oil, and those are good and healthy for you, but they do pack a ton of calories. I am not a person who is ever going to eat a dry salad. You can't force me to. I love sauces. I like my salad wet and drippy. So being able to have a sauce that lets me enjoy a salad and get in all of that good fiber and the protein that I've added on top of it. So I switched from making a lot of my dressings and sauces to buying some lower calorie, lower sugar options that work well for me and still taste great. I'm sure I could learn to make some of these at home, and I might do that one day, but for now, just having quick options in the fridge is great for me. I love using the Bolthouse Farms yogurt-based dressings. They're lower calorie and really good. I also use a lot of Primal Kitchen sauces, and I love making semi-homemade ranch with the Hidden Valley ranch seasoning and Greek yogurt. I'll use the Greek yogurt instead of mayonnaise for it, for a lower calorie but still delicious tasting option for a ranch dressing. For the most part, I am still eating mostly real food. Most of my day is filled with lots of fruits and vegetables and protein, with fulfilling carbs like rice and potatoes and pasta. And I still love making food from scratch for my family. I still make those homemade tortillas. I'll make homemade biscuits. The other day we made homemade pizza. I will make cinnamon rolls and sauces and so many other things from scratch. But the difference now is that because I'm on a GLP-1, I can eat so much less of it and be satisfied. While I have embraced this change to more processed foods in my diet, as I have been on this weight loss journey, there are some things that I still do not eat. For the most part, I do not eat many processed snacks. You will still not find me ever eating a protein bar or protein-infused packaged snacks. That's just not something that I am interested in eating. For the most part, I like to get my proteins from real meats. I would rather cut up a chicken breast and eat it with some sugar-free barbecue sauce than to eat a bag of protein chips made from chicken. And that's not to say that those things are bad. They're just not for me and just not choices that I make in my house. We just don't buy a lot of processed snacks. We have a system for snacks in my house. When somebody wants a snack, we call it a 3-part snack. So we eat produce, we eat protein, and a fun food. So when my kids want a snack, they'll get something like apple with peanut butter and cheese, or they will get a rice cake with yogurt and strawberries on top. And we try to pair things like that so that we're eating a well-rounded snack. It's almost like a mini meal versus a snack, so that you're not just eating because you want to eat out of boredom or stress or whatever it is, but eating to really fuel your body to carry you through to the next meal. When I think about snacks that way, for the most part, I'm an adult. Hunger is not an emergency. There are very few instances where I need a snack, so I just don't eat them. The one exception to that is that I do love mini saltines, and I will have 17 mini saltines. I count them out, that's a serving size, and I will eat those about once a day. I usually eat them in the afternoon with my Coke Zero, and it's just my little afternoon snack. It started because they were really good with curbing some of the nausea that I had at the very beginning when taking a GLP-1, but now it's just become almost like a little habit. It's a little treat. It's the one crunchy, salty snack that I do throughout the day, and I'm okay with it. So as you can see, I went from one extreme to another. I went from completely cutting out processed foods and being a real foodie for a long time, and then kind of just let go and let things slide so much that I was eating fast food 5 to 7 times a week. The difference now is that I have found a place I'm really comfortable with. For the most part, we're eating 90% real food at home. I'm cooking for my family and eating delicious homemade food. I am choosing processed options when it makes sense for me, and it's done with thoughtfulness and care and not mindlessness. And one thing I've learned that I was kind of surprised with as I have been on this journey and learned to eat more like a normal person. I know a lot of people will say there's no such thing as a normal person, but when I think about how I eat, it is kind of a mantra that has run in the back of my brain as I have reached a healthy weight and started to eat in a more normal way. You know, at the beginning when you started GLP-1, your appetite is pretty suppressed and you're really going hard on trying to lose the weight. But once I was at a healthy weight, I wanted to eat more normally. And so I started to think, how would a normal person eat? And that's kind of been my guiding mantra for a lot of different things. And what I realized is that normal people are making decisions about what they're eating subconsciously. It's in the back of their brain and they don't even have to think about it. They are balancing out their eating, not just what they're eating in a meal or a day, but really over the course of time, like in a week. So I have a really thin friend who's naturally thin, her whole family's thin. And I always found it so interesting. I could go out with her and we could get a dessert and she would say, "Oh no, I had cake on Tuesday." And I'm thinking, if there is cake in front of me, I am going to eat it. I don't care what happened. You know, if today is Friday, what happened on Tuesday is so irrelevant to this cake that is sitting in front of me on Friday that I have to eat this cake. She is somehow subconsciously balancing her calorie intake over time in a way that people with this brain just could not ever do. The same friend is a hiking buddy and we like to go hiking together. And the last time we hiked, we did like 8 miles. And I had asked her, "Hey, did you eat anything for breakfast today?" And she told me no, she didn't. She prefers to hike on an empty stomach. I know some people are so afraid of not eating. And it's almost like a bad word to say that you're not eating breakfast or you're not eating every few hours on a GLP-1, because then it looks like you are heading toward an eating disorder or something. But again, this is what normal people do. They make decisions for their body based on how they feel, not based on what other people are thinking about what they should do with their body. So this friend did not eat breakfast. We hiked 8 miles and then we went to a Mexican restaurant and had a delicious like homemade Mexican meal. And it was so good. And then she casually told me, "Oh yeah, this will be the only thing I eat today," because it was a big meal. It was around like 1 o'clock and she just wouldn't have an appetite for dinner. And so she's eating that one meal in a day on a day that we hiked 8 miles. And that's normal. And of course, not every day is like that for her. The next day, she might wake up and eat 3 meals, and that's totally normal too. So I think just giving ourselves permission to balance our days in a way that works for us and using all of the tools we have available to us, whether that is fasting or abstaining from food when we're not hungry, whether that is choosing lower sugar, lower carb, lower calorie options when we feel like we need those options, and then balancing our plates with food that is nourishing us. So making sure we have a good portion of protein, vegetables, we're getting in enough fiber so that we can feel full and keep our digestive system working. And then also adding in those satisfying carbs, the carbs that are going to satisfy our bodies so that we don't feel like we have to continue eating more. And for all of us, that's going to be something different. For me, potatoes are one of the most satisfying things that I can eat. If I have potatoes on my plate, I know that I'm going to enjoy that meal. It's going to be so good. Same thing with rice. If I could have a little bit of rice with whatever I'm eating, it will just fill me up in a way that having a plate of just protein and vegetables doesn't do. So I think the bigger picture here is that all of us are so unique and different. There are so many different diets and ways of eating and different lifestyles that you can choose for yourself, whether you're on a GLP-1 journey or a weight loss journey or just trying to live your healthiest, best life. What's healthy for one person doesn't have to mean that that is the only way that we can be healthy and that that healthy diet will work for everybody else. Part of this journey was getting to know my body and getting to know myself in a way that I hadn't before by doing things like tracking what I was eating and measuring and weighing my favorite foods that I ate all the time so that I knew what a serving size looked like, by weighing myself every day so that I knew how food I was eating was affecting my body, by using a continuous glucose monitor so that I could measure how foods affected my body, because foods affect different bodies in different ways. So if you can be in tune with your body and be able to figure out what is going to work for you, I think you will have the confidence to know that you're eating in a healthy, sustainable way for your body, even if that looks a little bit different than what other people are eating. If you're looking for a place to start, I would highly recommend just starting by tracking what you're eating. I have kids with food allergies, and I have done this many times in my life by just keeping a food journal. Just start by keeping track of what you're eating. You can measure the calories if you want. You can measure protein if you want. Pick a few metrics that you want to focus on, and then look at the overall picture of how are you feeling? Do you have energy? Are you able to get up every day without feeling groggy? Are you able to go do a workout? Are you able to make it through that afternoon slump? The scale can be another piece of that data. If you are going down in weight, then obviously what you're doing is working. If you're sustaining but not going down, or if you're going up, then maybe you need to be making some adjustments in your diet. And maybe it's not just cutting calories, but making some simple swaps that allow you to eat the way that you want to eat without feeling deprived, but eat in a way that is better for your body. Your health journey is personal. What's perfect on paper isn't always going to be perfect for your body. And the good news is you get to find the perfect balance for you, whether that's homemade crackers or Coke Zero. I started this YouTube channel a little over a month ago, and I have been so blown away with how many of you have told me that you have connected with my story, and I'm so glad that I've been able to share. And I'm so excited for future videos and what I can share next. So if you have an idea of what you might want me to share, leave me a comment and tell me what you want to hear more about. Please go ahead and subscribe so that you can get alerted when I have new videos.